Being stuck in addiction is like being a zombie. We've all dealt with it. We know what drinking does to us. It gives us pleasure, and then it gives us hangover. And then we're on repeat. A daily cycle of drink and be hungover, drink and be sick. And we give everything up for it. It doesn't really matter because alcohol is all we crave. So, similar to a zombie craving brains. We've all seen those movies where the zombie, it's walking around half dead. It's all it's craving is its next meal, and that's what it's like being stuck in addiction to alcohol. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Josh, living life alcohol free. If you're returning, thank you so much for joining us and this discussion on what it's like to be stuck in addiction. It's like being a zombie. We walk around all day, all night, preoccupied with drinking. I'll take you on my step-by-step of my day, what it was like for me as a drinker. I've been sober a little over 5 years now. It's the best decision I ever made. But looking back on it, and I make these videos not just to help people that are new to the channel, but also people that are returning and watching that are newly sober or sober curious, because the more we hear these stories, the more it solidifies in our minds that living life alcohol free is better. If you ever have bouts of sobriety, if you ever have days where you don't drink and you can tell that you feel better, it's it's awesome. And we kind of wish that we could just live like that, but it's hard to attain. We reach for it, but it's like elusive, and we want it, but we can't get it, or we don't want it. We don't necessarily want to live a life alcohol free. We're on the fence still. We're still finding benefits in it. If you're still finding benefits in alcohol, but you're sober curious, you've come to the right place. This is a safe community where we can kind of talk back and forth about what our journeys are like. I can tell you from my experience and some of the comments that I've received over the last couple of months on my videos is that a lot of people resonate with the fact that we walk around like zombies when we're stuck in addiction. And it's hard to see that when we're in it. It takes a little bit of time away from it, a little bit of uh, solidifying in our minds that we did have a problem with alcohol, and really we're able to see just what our day-to-day life was like as a drinker compared now to what life is like as a non-drinker. And if you compare the two, there's no comparison. Life is better alcohol free. And you might be saying to yourself, well, I've been sober for a few weeks now, a few months, and I still have this anxiety, this depression, and it doesn't feel like the fog is lifting yet. But I can tell you that if you hang in there, you're going to find the benefits. It just might take a little bit of extra effort. For me, that was therapy. For me, that was taking medication. It was going through all the day-to-day checklists in my mind of what I wanted to attain, instead of thinking about the reasons why I didn't want to drink anymore. Instead of I just didn't want to be sick anymore. Instead of thinking I just don't want to die from my drinking, think about the benefits of your relationships, the forgiveness. You forgive yourself, and you don't have to walk around with that guilt and shame anymore and just giving your life over to alcohol. You don't have to, you no longer have to be a slave to the addiction. You don't have to be a slave to that old way of thinking. So when I would wake up in the morning, it was typically like 3 or 4 in the morning. We all do it. From my experience and reading and having friends in sobriety communities, we all wake up with that 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning wake up call. We have anxiety. We might be nauseous. We might have a headache, a stomach ache, these things. And it's like a wake up call. and you go back to sleep. You might be able to sleep for a few more hours. It's not great sleep, but you get up and you feel like a zombie. You know, you've slept poorly. You have, like I said, you still have anxiety and nausea, headache, and maybe you didn't drink as much as you do on some nights, but there's still some level of hangover that's involved, and it takes a few hours sometimes to get over it. So we go to work or get on with our day, whatever that is, and we nurse our hangover. We're preoccupied with just that feeling and stuck in that feeling for a while. Then that lifts, and then we get to about lunchtime maybe, and we start to feel like that's that nausea, that feeling of still maybe you're still feeling like you're drunk in the morning. I mean, I oftentimes that's how I felt, because especially in my 20s, because I drank so much that I'm pretty certain I was still inebriated the next day. And that's scary, because you can get in trouble. From what I understand, I had one client that I drove a few months ago, I was driving him to AA, and he told me that he got his DUI the next morning, but he was up late drinking, but it had been several hours, like 7 hours since he drank, but he still blew over the legal limit. And that's really the first I've ever heard of that. But I'm thankful that I didn't ever get pulled over in the mornings, because I was probably there. I probably still would have blew something a lot of those times. And sometimes I think I was just still buzzed with the hangover. But you get to the midday, and then it starts to lift. Typically for me, especially in my 20s, I was anxious. When that hangover would wear off, I was filled with anxiety a lot of times, and it sometimes it depended on how much I drank the night before. If I didn't drink as much as I normally do, then I might not have that panic as much. But I would fight through that, and I would once I got through the panic or the anxiety attack, I would pick up the beer again, the alcohol, whatever it was I was drinking that night, and start again. And the anticipation of that, so it might last a few hours. So you're preoccupied with it all morning with your sickness. You're preoccupied with the anticipation of your drinking session. Then you get to the actual drinking session, and it's like a release, a relief. You get to the point where you feel like that's what you needed that whole time, like a zombie eating brains. You know, we we crave that buzz. We crave that feeling that we can get on with our day now finally. And looking back on my drinking in particular, and all the things that I read and I kind of learned while I was first getting sober, was that we were hooked. I was hooked on just getting to the drinking session so that I could calm the anxiety back down. And I wasn't calm until I was like 4 or 5 beers in. And then it was kind of like I would go into this darkness, and I felt like a relief that I didn't have to deal with the reality of life anymore. Now, in this time in my 20s, I didn't have a whole lot going on. I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, and I was by myself a lot. I was a single guy. I grew up an only child, so for me, it was like that was just my go-to thing, was drinking. Then in my 30s, I got married, and I married into a family, and then we had a daughter of our own together, and things got busy and hectic, and I continued on drinking, but I wasn't drinking to the point of really feeling like bad the next day. It was still there, but I was drinking probably half of what I would drink in my 20s, but I was drinking every day almost, most days anyway. But we drink. I would still drink until I was satisfied, and that usually might start if I was working. It might start at like 5 or 6 at night, sometimes 7 o'clock at night. But I would drink until midnight, and then I would go to bed, and again wake up with that feeling that 3 or 4 a.m. Why am I doing this to myself? I hate this feeling. Our families start to notice a change in us. They start to notice that we're kind of stumbling through our lives. And maybe to ourselves, it seems like we are functioning properly. But to the others that are looking at us, we're not. We're functioning like we're just walking, like sleepwalking through life, only really focused on one thing, and that is alcohol. Only focused on getting to that binge session, and nothing else really matters. And we might hide the amount that we're drinking. We might hide that we are drinking. Maybe we go out to the bar and because we don't drink at home. For me, I was a drinker at home, so there were typical situations where I would kind of just go outside and crack the beer. I might go out in the garage and crack the beer. Not all of them, but I didn't want my family to hear me cracking one beer after another every 15 or 20 minutes, all day and all night. In my mind, I was making it acceptable to to drink like that, when in reality, it shouldn't be acceptable to ourselves to drink like that, because it changes our brain chemistry, and we become addicted to it, and it's a slippery slope. And if we have these addictive personalities and we turn to something that is also very addictive, it's a recipe for disaster. Then we're stuck in it, and we might not be in it like right away. It might take years. For me, it probably took, I would say, probably took 3 years for me to really um, get to a point where I knew that this was a problem for me. I got into some legal troubles in my late teens, and then I got into a little bit more trouble, but not as, it wasn't as bad of trouble, but in my early 20s. Um, and it really started to make me question, do I really want to keep drinking? But the answer always was yeah, because this alcohol is where I found my solace. I didn't really have people in my life that I trusted. I didn't really have role models growing up to look to imitate how I wanted to be. Those that I did, they weren't there present every day, day in and day out, that I would have liked to have had. So I turned to alcohol at 15 years old, and it took me a few years, like I said, to build up that tolerance to start drinking each day during the week instead of just on the weekends. And then in my 20s, it was game on, because I could buy it when I'm 21. Those of you in the UK and other countries, you can drink. I think you can drink whenever you want. There isn't really a legal limit, but here in the States, it's 21, so it's kind of hard to get until you're 21. But once I turned 21, it was all over, man. It was like, this is my go-to thing, and this is what I'm gonna do. And there were a couple times in my 20s that I thought about going on some antidepressants to help with the anxiety. Each time I took maybe one or two pills, and I thought, I'm afraid that I'm going to do further damage to my liver or my kidneys by taking a medication and drinking. So I would stop taking the medication and just drink alcohol. And I craved it like a zombie. And then walking around half dead, half hungover most days, and then going into this drinking session, drinking to blackout. And then I might have a day here and there where I didn't drink the night before, and I would go like a half a day or a whole day completely no hangover, but I'm not drinking either. And those were the times when I felt my best. And that's when I kind of knew that eventually, when I was done with alcohol, whenever that might be, that life would be better. Life would be simpler. I wouldn't be just craving alcohol all the time, preoccupied with it, thinking about it 24/7. That was exciting to me, but I didn't see that in my future, in my near future at all. And I ended up drinking for 27 years, from the age of 15 to the age of 42. And it really took the pandemic for me to open my eyes to the amount that I was drinking, the problems that it was causing me and my family. And I just decided one day, after I had a blow up at my family, one night after drinking all day, I just decided the next day, I'm gonna either cut down or quit. I didn't know that I could quit cold turkey because I had been drinking a ton earlier and earlier in the day during the first 6 weeks of the pandemic. But I found a uh, sobriety group, This Naked Mind. I read the book by Annie Grace. I read William Porter's book, Alcohol Explained. That really broke down the kind of the science behind how we get addicted to alcohol, why we get addicted to it. Annie Grace's philosophy was like live one calendar year alcohol free, experience each event in your life, each holiday in your life without alcohol that you would normally celebrate with drinking. Do it as a non-drinker and get to 1 year and see how you feel. So that was my baseline goal in my first month of being alcohol free. I got on the group. I saw that they were. I wanted to control my drinking, so my goal was to have one or two and be done. But I started to read the posts on this forum, and I saw people that were alcohol free for months and sometimes years talk about just how better life is. And as I went throughout that first week of not drinking, because I had a massive hangover that day, and it wasn't like the worst hangover I ever had, but it was pretty high anxiety, and my heart rate was over 100, like 120 for about 2 days, and I just couldn't calm down for some reason. I know that the alcohol fueled that, but there were just a lot of shame that I had, that I was carrying, a lot of burdens that I was carrying, and I just I knew I needed to take some time away from drinking, but I happened to stumble across these books and this group, and then make a therapy visit for the week later. And I went to that session. I wanted to drink. After I was done with it, I told my therapist that I was going to go home and drink. This was a new therapist, someone I had never met before, but he said some things that made complete sense. He said, if you're going to drink, and I don't condone it, but go home. If you're going to drink it, have one, notice how you feel. Have two, sit and think about how you feel. And when I got home and I heard the voices of my family having a good time in the other room, I thought, why would I want to wash that, the voices of those people that I care about so much? Why would I want to continue washing that away? Because alcohol helps us cope with things. It really does help us. But in the meantime, it washes away all the other good things that are happening in our lives. And we can't really see it while we're stuck in it, like a zombie. It doesn't matter. We still have a heart in there. We still have a brain, but we're always constantly just worried about getting to that craving, feeding that craving of alcohol. And it really it ends up ultimately hurting us. So my drinking kind of ran its course. Uh, I still wasn't to a point, I don't think, where it was so detrimental that I was going to die from it. Eventually, probably because I was drinking insane amounts of alcohol. But I think it's just it's not a linear journey for any of us. It's jagged. Some of us have health issues, some of us have legal issues, and we have no choice but to quit. Some of us just see that our relationships are deteriorating, our self-esteem is deteriorating, we're not dealing with life the way that we want to, the way that we need to, and we need to get rid of the alcohol to get to that point where we can actually like fix the things that are broken within us. And that's really what it took for me. And I didn't see that while I was drinking. I tried everything to make my life better: meditation, therapy, uh, medication, hiking, praying, uh, all, you name it. You know, you try all these things, but if you continue to drink, it's really undoing the progress. And when I started to recognize that that was happening was I started taking Zoloft a couple years before I ultimately quit drinking. But every 6 months, I had to increase because the alcohol was kind of undoing the benefits of the Zoloft. Yes, it was working, but it would wear off after maybe like 6 months, and I'd have to increase the dosage, but I was still drinking. And then when the pandemic started and my drinking accelerated, and then I quit, I was only on the Zoloft for like 6 more months because I was actually getting the benefits of the Zoloft finally because I wasn't drinking. And that's really the key to, from my experience, to figuring out life. I used to always be kind of jealous of people that seemed like they had their life figured out. They didn't seem to have the problems that I had, but they weren't walking around in this zombie state addicted to alcohol. They weren't addicted to drugs. They weren't, not that, to my knowledge. You know, we don't really always understand what is going on in somebody's life. We just see from the surface that it looks like they have everything figured out. And some people do. And I can tell you from all the things that I've gone through in the last 5 years, but really specifically once I got to 6 months, a year, and then ultimately like the third year was really when things really started to change for me. I felt comfortable opening up about my sobriety. I started to feel like I didn't need to use something to escape my reality. Uh, I just decided that no chemical was ever going to solve what was really going on and really broken within me. And acceptance was the biggest hurdle in all of it. But it was stepping stones. The first year it was just not drinking. The second year it was being enlightened about life, about how I tick, finding out like what makes me, Josh, feel alive, focusing on those things. Year three was um, not worrying so much about what other people think. And it took a few months, 6 months, to get to a point where, at that point, about 3.5 years in, I'm not going to say I don't care about what people think, but I was to a point where it was like, I'm in my mid 40s now. I've been sober for a few years now. I've worked on myself. I do feel good. I don't need alcohol or drugs or even medications to cope with things. I don't even need a therapist at this point. Like, I'm able to work out what's going on in my life that's hard to deal with, but I'm able to hit it head on, deal with it, and move on to the next thing. And then I don't have to go home and drink and wake up with a hangover to accomplish that. In fact, I deal with it, I move on. Time is something that we get back when we quit drinking. We get so much more. It's like a superpower. We get time back. We can do things all night now. Go to bed whenever and wake up and we're refreshed, and we're not hungover. We feel good. We can have our coffee, our tea, whatever that we have when we wake up in the morning, and just get on with our day. So that's what I got for you today, guys. I'm so glad that you're here. You're following this. Stick with me. If you found value in this video, or my other videos, please like and subscribe. I'll pin a link to my playlist for my other videos down below. I'll also pin the link to my sobriety group called Sobriety in the Storm. It's a private Facebook group. I'll pin that in the comment below. And yeah, I'm glad that you're here. So have a great sober day, everybody. Keep the faith, and we'll talk to you soon.